You there you go with him now.
Hello and good evening, everybody. Welcome to Worldview. So we're having another one of our weekly conversations. It is the same topic as last week. It is Kill the Boer, the song, and especially we're going to focus on Cyril Ramaphosa's chameleon comments in the United States. He gave statements, although a little bit vaguely condemning the song. And then back in South Africa, he's sort of almost justified it in the sense that saying it is part of liberation struggle heritage. So it's provoking debate again to the extent that even Piers Morgan is talking about it tonight. So we are in competition with him. Please subscribe to this channel and not his. I'm joined today by Gota Kumani. He is a developmental consultant focusing on transformation of municipalities. Kuketso Rasani, he's a social media influencer. Fadil Adams, he is my representative to Parliament, of the National Coloured Congress. And I am joined by Nota Baloy, he's a music executive and social media influencer as well. So welcome, gentlemen. Kuketso, I would like to start with you. Following Cyril Ramaphosa's comments, what was your impression of him saying one thing in America and another thing in South Africa?
Yeah, hi everyone. I think it was actually expected. I'm going to come out and say the president did exactly what I expected him to do. That is, be very soft, eloquent, almost show a demeanor very like that of Nelson Mandela, to really show that, you know, South Africa has good leadership, eloquent leadership. And of course, he still suffers from the problem of he wants to tell the Americans what they want to hear. He wants to tell his constituents what they want to hear. And then you put him in front of the UN, he'll want to tell the rest of the world what they want to hear as well. There's one problem with that. Cameras are on. And in this day and age, people are collecting evidence of everything he says, past and present. And once you put a montage of everything, it starts to paint a picture that he's contradicting himself based on who he's talking to. So he did exactly what I expected him to do. Nothing more, nothing less, almost coming with a grandfather figure to show the world that, look, I'm the president of South Africa, and based on my demeanor, I am a good leader, I'm an eloquent leader, and as you can tell, I'm a friendly leader as well. So nothing new there.
So, Fadil, I'd like to get your comment in on this as a member of parliament and maybe a question to ask him the question next time. But what is the president up to here? And is anybody falling for this? Why is he saying two things to two different audiences?
He's a politician. This is what politicians do. Good evening, everyone. You know, I'm deeply disappointed in the president. I don't think a South African delegation should have gone anywhere near the White House. The president should have simply have released a media statement and let it be there. Let Donald Trump think and do what he wants to. Instead, we had our president going to the States, being belittled by a racist, accepting the treatment that he received. All this to placate investors. You know, these markets that people go on about don't belong to us. They don't. And if the markets tumble and Rupert loses a few 100 million, who cares? We should stand strong. This is South Africa. We should show our resilience. I expected more from the president without expecting more from the president, if you understand what I mean. The president was over there not to do anything else but to assure the people, keep him a billionaire, that all is well. All is not well. And it's time South Africa must have the hard conversation. We can't keep ducking it. We've been ducking it for 30 years, and that's why we're in trouble. So he finds himself in a really, really tough position. Because if the Ruperts and the Oppenheimers and Trump are done with him, he'll be counting his money in thousands, not billions. And the probability
how does Rupert and the Oppenheimers have any control over Cyril Ramaphosa's wealth? I mean, he doesn't get paid by them, to my knowledge. He's a businessman. He had shares, made his money out of BE transactions, as far as I can tell. But he's got his own wealth. He's got his own words. He's supposed to have his own principles, but he says two different things. I mean, why would they control him? And then the other question to you is like, yes.
In 1994 or thereabouts, these shares were handed out by who? You heard of Jonik? Who owns Jonik? Understand where we're going with that. That this is actually not the space for that debate, but let's just work with me here. The people that made billionaires out of these ANC leaders are the people that run this country, that have always run this country. So what this man needed to do was to save his fortune. And if you look at the bigger picture here, with the Pala Pala thing looming, whichever way he goes with government, he's going to need those billions to defend himself. So I wouldn't want to be Cyril Ramaphosa for all the tea in China, because he's walking a political tightrope, and at some stage he's going to slip. It's a very sad situation to find a president in. It's a compromised situation to have to find a president in, but it's what it is, and the country must deal with it.
Right, but let me get to you, Gouta. What is your view on this? I mean, Fadil's view is that the president is essentially bought and paid for, but it still doesn't add up to me as to why people would pay him to say two different things to two different audiences.
Yeah, thank you, gentlemen, for this opportunity. Look, South African economy is on its last legs. We are not producing as much as we are supposed to, given the potential of the country. We need to do whatever we can in the diplomatic circles to keep American money in the country through the trade deal called AGOA, because the motor assembly plants in East London, specifically Mercedes-Benz, is benefiting from this AGOA, exporting automotive goods to the United States at lower tariffs or at no tariffs at all. Americans buy our citrus and our apparel. America is the only country where we have a large trade surplus. That is a plus for the country. But if we don't do it, if we lose AGOA, we are going to lose a lot in terms of those exports. So we must look beyond the benefits that the billionaires are going to get. You know, the rich people are able to protect themselves against, rising cost of living. But the 200,000 or 150,000 that are employed as benefits of AGOA, it's a huge number, and we are losing jobs, we are losing capital, and we must put this notion that our sovereignty was at stake. People don't eat sovereignty. Yes.
I'd just like to push back a little bit against that. First of all, the economists, and this is in Biz News, people can read it, have make a strong argument that the impact of AGOA is severely overstated. South Africa, it will be a fraction of our GDP. This is what some economists estimated. And in actual fact, not all of our products are tariff-free. So there's a lot of nuance to what the actual impact of AGOA might be. Sure, we would like markets, and sure, we would like trade. I can understand it. But, this is not just about singing a song, Kill the Boer. Okay, that's what made the media headlines, and certainly that's getting traction. The United States is pressuring South Africa to make certain concessions. Kill the Boer being one of them, the Israeli case at the ICJ being another one of them. There's a lot more to that. I mean, and then the other question is, what about the sovereignty of South Africa? I mean, what everyone thinks of the president and the ANC, should we, or our leadership, buckle under pressure simply because of trade sanctions?
I'm conflicted there in a number of those issues that you put on the table, ICJ case and Kill the Boer and what else. Look, for me, Kill the Boer is nonsensical. It shouldn't be something that we get we pride ourselves in. It is un-African to make somebody, your neighbor or your brother, uncomfortable in that manner. It's totally unnecessary. It shows a certain level of an inferiority complex from these politicians who have absolutely no alternative economic policies that they can offer. So what they need to do is to capitalize on white fears or to try to campaign on an anti-white rhetoric, which is not helpful at all, and is totally unnecessary. It doesn't build the nation. It doesn't put food on the table. What for? I think it's not something that we can defend. And I remember Peter Mukawa sang it in the early 90s, and the ANC told him to shut up, and he stopped because it was making people uncomfortable. Why should you do that? As I say, according to me, the values of African values don't it's something that is anti-African to do that.
So I'd like to bring you in, Anota, and to get on to Gota's comment. Is it, do you agree that this is an anti-African thing to sing Song of This Nation? And, also just your view on this. I mean, should the president speak to this? Should he condemn it? Should he? Why is he in such a difficult position to not give a clear position on it?
Well, I don't think the president is in a difficult position. I think he's kicked to touch. He's allowed the Constitutional Court ruling to take precedence in this instance, and he's left it up to that forum to conclude the matter, and he's not getting engaged in it.
But he surely is responding to it. I mean, it seems to be that
he's being asked a question.
Yeah, but the Constitutional Court ruling is being used for convenience here. I mean, he's asked a basic statement, is it proper or improper, something of that nature, to sing this, and he's basically defending this, as part of the liberation struggle heritage here. But within the United States, he said the complete opposite.
Well, I don't think he's defended the song being sung. I think he's defended the heritage of the song and it being part of, the liberation struggle. But when it comes to this current instance where he's being asked about the video being shown in the Oval Office, he's kicked to touch in that he said that the Constitutional Court has made a ruling on the matter and that it's reached its finality at the Constitutional Court, and that's the final arbiter of the matter. And he's saying that it doesn't matter what his personal opinion is about it. What matters is the history, the heritage, and the Constitutional Court ruling, saying that it's not unlawful.
Right. Okay. But okay, fair enough. You can fall back onto the Constitution, but then, if I understand you correctly, he's basically saying that ignore Donald Trump in a certain sense on this.
I mean, Donald Trump doesn't decide our laws, and even if it was a threat of, souring relations between our two nations, the United States is so intrinsically dependent on South Africa for so many essential for so much of their trade as well, that they can't really
Wait a minute. South Africa's trade is less than 1% of America's. The economy is the size of Maryland. Our impact internationally is negligible compared to the United States.
No, that's the thing, is that you look at the trade in terms of goods. You don't even look at the trade in terms of services. You don't look at the trade in terms of currency movements. You don't look at the trade in terms of the fact that establishing the basis for their corporations, over 500 of these companies that they've got within the African continent, most of them domiciled and based within South Africa. When you talk about Microsoft, when you talk about Oracle, when you talk about all those data centers, when you talk about the entire financial systems of the entire African continent, all of that is based on American financial systems, and all of that is housed here in South Africa. So, we're central to all the trade that happens on the African continent. 60% of the trade that happens on the African continent, happens within South Africa, with the biggest economy on the African continent.
Yes, but the African continent's economy is still the size of France's, more or less, which is the fourth or fifth largest economy in the world. So, yes, I mean, I would like to see more trade in Africa, and I would like to see American investment, but don't you believe that you're maybe overstating our financial strength a little bit?
No, I don't think that I'm overstating our financial strength. We punch above our weight in many instances. Even when you talk about, our financial strength, we were the one region that survived, the financial crash of 2008 and 2009. We had the most fiscal stability globally within that period of time. We're also a debt sovereign. I think more than 88% of our debt is rand denominated. So, we're very much shielded from the negative fallout of whatever's happening in global markets as well. We trade in very, volatile raw materials and commodities. And what that does is that it gives us a little bit of, I guess, cross hedging. Right now, the gold price is up, right? And we're looking good.
But hold on, we're still.
And then soon enough, but let me just explain to you.
Oh.
Soon enough, when people are not moving into gold, when people are going into materials that they need for trade, for whatever it is, for battery technology, they'll be moving into the platinum group metals, and then there'll be a surge in demand for that. They'll be moving into things like copper as well, because they need cables for these electronic devices, whether it be cars, whatever you name it. We'll always have a product that's in demand, so we'll always be secure. We also control 2 hemispheres at our coast for sea trade as well. So when that choke point in the Suez Canal is being heavily contested because there's conflict between Yemen, Somalia, Israel, you name it, we also benefit from that as well. So, we're a strategic region for the world. There's no way anyone can disassociate themselves from us, no matter what. And that's why there's so much of a bluster from the Trump administration, because, they are trying to, play hardball. They are bluffing as well. But we're not aligned and we're unmoved. And, we're still very much a power broker in the world and very much influential.
Right. So, I guess I'd like to get your perspective on that. Do you agree with the previous speaker that South Africa has economic leverage and, we can't just be as easily pushed around, I suppose, by the United States?
So there's 2 sides to this coin. For all the net positives, that again, it's a common, it's brought to our attention many times, just how important South Africa is on the global scale. The first side of that coin is that if we look at our mineral wealth, right, you can have all the minerals in the world, but if you are unable to extract them efficiently, by efficient, I mean it needs to make business sense. You cannot spend more on extraction as you would materially get when you're selling. So, of all the mineral wealth in the country, we do many times overstate our position by how important we are, because let's not forget that we may have a lot of gold, but we're not the only place with gold in the world. We may have a lot of platinum, and we're still the number 1 producer of that, granted, but we're not the only place with platinum in the world either. And then rinse and repeat for a lot of other minerals as well. Magnesium comes to mind too, where we used to have a market dominant position. We're no longer in the top 5. Gold, we're no longer in the top 10. At one point, we were number 1 in the world. So you can have all the minerals in the world that will make you very strategic and very important, but at the same time, you're not the only place in the world that has minerals. And unfortunately, with the Trump administration, they are very much willing to look elsewhere for that. And this is a lesson that some other players worldwide have learned. I'll make the example with Venezuela and oil. They discover large deposits of crude oil there, I think the largest in the world. What does the leadership there do? They then decide, okay, great, we have the biggest deposits of oil in the world, bigger than even the Gulf states. So we are going to nationalize all the oil producing assets from private enterprise. And you will be forced, their thinking was that you will be forced to buy oil from us because we have the most of it. Guess what? Sanctions come in and the world gets its oil elsewhere. And with all the mineral wealth in Venezuela, the people are still poor, the government is broke, and the regime is effectively a dictatorship. So that's the
Sure,
one
but
side of the coin.
just to add a few facts on Venezuela, what one must also consider, the United States tried to instigate coup d'etats against Hugo Chavez, which shares my name as it happens to be, and actively the CIA tried to destabilize that country. So yes, it is true, we can argue that nationalization played some role, although it must be said that oil is nationalized in Norway, which happens to be one of the richest countries in the world. So it's not necessarily true that nationalization leads to bad things, but we have bad examples of it, right? But at the same time, one must take into account that Hugo Chavez was defying the United States, if you were to put that way, or being provocative in another way. And the CIA reacted. John Bolton was on television bragging that he instigated a coup d'etat, which is a federal felony in the United States, but that law doesn't seem to apply. So, I mean, when you use Venezuela as the example, I mean, you must add that context surely as well.
No, it is important context. I think the point I'm trying to bring across here is you can have everything in the world, but the sun will rise tomorrow with or without you. That's the point I'm bringing. But to conclude my point, the second half of that is, again, when you look at the importance of how South Africa is, a lot of it actually has to do with the people. That is the skill set, high literacy rates, still the best healthcare in Africa. I would know. I work in clinical diagnostics professionally. So yeah, long gap between number one, South Africa, and number two, which I believe is Algeria. Still a very long gap there. So good literacy rate, good healthcare system. Again, our education is suspect, but it does lead to good literacy rate. And importantly, that literacy rate is also literate in English. That's a strategic advantage. That's a competitive advantage. And this is what makes particularly multinational corporations look at South Africans as a people. Our universities still produce good graduates as well. You know, you don't graduate in South Africa and then have to rewrite an entrance exam if you want to go to Austria and further your studies, for example. You might do maybe a basic test, but your degree is not going to be put in question because education out of South African universities is still good. Why am I bringing all of this up? Is that the advantage we have is actually in the people. And I bring the people up because remember, people can move and they move all the time. So with the brain drain that is currently taking place, companies are very willing to insource South Africans by pulling them out of South Africa and really benefiting from having that educated, experienced, English-speaking South African inside of their building. But that building doesn't have to be in South Africa. And we're seeing a lot of that with multinational corporations. Yes, a lot of them, including those from the US, did set up shop in South Africa. But that shop can move. And if and when it does move, so too can the people. So we need to be very careful here in overplaying our hand a little bit, because again, when it comes to a brain drain, the dream is to be earning in dollars, pounds, euros, and then spending in rand. But even if you can't get to that dream, there's nothing stopping a lot of South Africans from simply just crossing the Atlantic legally and going to apply your trade elsewhere on a green card, even in the US. And once that happens at scale, then suddenly South Africa no longer has the people within it to be a competitive advantage in terms of what we have. It's Tembakwayo who mentioned this many years ago, that for all the people who are willing to tell parts of the population that, look, you must just go ahead and leave because you're white and give us back the land, etc., it doesn't make sense that someone grows up in South Africa, gets educated by the South African government, goes to a South African university, and now you have a potential resource who could better the country, either materially or indirectly by just being a taxpayer. After all of that, why would you want to tell the person to leave? You know, so yeah, we shouldn't overplay our hand here, and that's the second part of the coin.
Right, but the I guess to bring you in here, Fadil, I mean, the title of this conversation was obviously Kill the Boer, and if I can understand, what many of the hosts are getting at, it comes down to economics, right? The risk or no risk to South Africa of, backing down to the United States demands. And let's be clear, it's not just a song that the United States is demanding, right? They've got other demands they're making. We need to assess it from an economic perspective. I mean, do you agree with that?
The economics are very simple. What's the price of our sovereignty? Do we ignore the Constitutional Court to appease an idiot? I'm asking the question. Go and read through the comments. Let me tell you something about Kill the Boer. Kill the Boer was a song that was sung by the oppressed against the oppressors. That's a symbolic thing. If you read through the comments over there, there's only a handful of them, but you'll be shocked. Like, white South Africans have a real issue with Kill the Boer, but have no problem with the Voortrekker Monument or Delray. It's
The Delray doesn't
actually
call for the active killing of people, to my knowledge. It's a song dedicated to the Anglo-Boer War.
But
English at least.
But there was killing. There was actual killing that Delray was singing about. Kill the Boer. There was no actual killing that is being spoken about.
Nota. I'm on the floor. I'll handle this. Thank you. There was actual murder with Delray. Kill the Boer is symbolic. So what I'm saying is, while we still have oppression in this country, and let's not forget that we do, and while we still have oppressors in this country, and let's not forget that we do, why are we being so sensitive about a symbolic song? The stem is still part of our anthem, and I swear, I hate that song. I don't sing it when the anthem is sung. I don't. Because to me, white soldiers played it while loading their rifles on the way to the townships to come and kill us. Now, how much more leeway does right-wing South Africa want from us as people of color when they attack us over a simple song? Why are black people so apologetic about a simple song? We need to talk about this. Let me tell you something, Buta. Go into rural South Africa and don't even go far. Just go up the road here to Citrusdal. Go and see the conditions farm workers live under. Go and see how they get abused by farmers. And then tell me how you feel about Kill the Boer.
But hold on. Nobody, to my knowledge, is singing "Let's Abuse the Farm Worker." Okay, nobody is singing "Shoot the Gangster," or we acknowledge that gang killings is a big problem in South Africa.
I would.
Farmers are being killed. This is a fact. Okay, now we can debate the statistics, and last time the statistics that was brought up is that it's something like 3 times higher than the general population. Now, one can add nuance to that, say they're local, they're unprotected, it's no different in brutality to the general population. It's a lot of things like that things. But at the moment, there's a section of the population who feels uncomfortable singing stuff. Now, I would agree with
farmer. No. Let me give context, if you'll allow me. No farmer is being killed by a revolutionary or politician. Farmers are being killed by criminals. We have a crime problem. You say there's a percentage of the population that feels uncomfortable. 10 ladies will die on the Cape Flats tonight. We feel uncomfortable. Let's not blow this out of context. In the last quarter, stats, the police just released their stats. 4 farmers were killed countrywide across 9 provinces. Do you know there's a high probability of 4 ladies being killed in the area that I live tonight? Let's not overblow this thing. There's no white genocide. Can we at least agree on that, all of us? And the people in the
I would really agree with you. Genocide does not exist in South Africa. It's absurd.
Farmers are not being targeted, Mania. Here's the fact. We have a crime. Listen. We have a crime problem. We have a criminality problem. We have a judicial system that's failing us. We have politicians that are flopping. That's the problem. Farmers are not being targeted. And let me tell you something. Farmers must be very happy that they're not being targeted. Because the way farm workers are being treated, if I was a farm worker, there'd be dead farmers out there. I tell you now, I've heard of men having to watch as their wives are sworn at by the Boer. And he needs to watch and shut up because if he opens his mouth in defense of his own wife, he'll get evicted tonight. We need context.
Nobody,
Hold on,
nobody
Igor,
to my
hold on,
knowledge, hold on, Fadil, nobody to my knowledge is saying that's a good thing. If that happens, that's obvious racism. That's against the law, to my knowledge, in South
Amen.
Africa. That
Amen.
farmers should go to jail, etc. Okay. At the same time, I actually agree with the Constitutional Court ruling. I actually would go further and say I don't think any song should be banned in South Africa. Okay, you can sing what you want. If you want to kill me, go sing it. I honestly don't care. Okay, that's your thing. Although I don't believe it's decent to do so. Okay, I just don't see why this is such a big problem for politicians to say, listen, okay, we understand some people have sensitive feelings about being, hearing a song in a state with people in support by politicians, the third largest political party in South Africa, surrounded by how many thousand people in the politician singing a song. We can call it a liberation song if you want, but I'm from the ethnicity that's being targeted by that song. That's a little bit different, okay?
So I'll make you a
deal.
deal.
A little bit different. Sure.
I don't have a mandate to make you a deal, but I'll make you a deal. Let's scrap this stem. Let's tear down the Voortrekker monument and we'll stop singing. Deal?
Voortrekker monument, to my knowledge, is private property. I'm against going after that. The stem, I honestly don't even care about any anthem.
And I could argue that Kill the Boer is intellectual property. So we don't want that argument. What I'm saying to you is that concessions to be made. Concessions can't only be made on one side.
You can't put IP on a song, first of all. But anyways,
wait,
I'm gonna
hold on. Wait.
You're very great above as a politician. You speak a lot in Parliament as well. I would like you to come in with your comments.
No, just give me a second.
Yes.
Wait, give me a second. Wait, I just want to contextualize it for you. Sure. When people went out and said Rhodes must fall, who was Rhodes? He was a genocidal maniac who plundered this country. When Black South Africa said, when Black South Africa said Rhodes must fall, you should have seen the comments from White South Africa. Oh, they're animals. Oh, these people have no civilization in them. Oh God, this country is in its moor. Blah 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 blah. How is it okay that only the one side's history, no matter how wrong, no matter how antagonistic, is okay to be left right where it is? The other side that
you have a saying this song. Okay, that's just history. You have Alexander the Great. Okay, if you wives from Iran, the Iranians call him Alexander the Bastard because he committed a genocide in Persia. Okay,
my brother.
Have things of this. You have things of this historically.
My brother. No. You know there was a street called Percy Utah Street in Cape Town, and I was a lightie. And every time we rode down that street, my father would spit at the sign. Because Percy Utah was the man who tried to have Mandela killed, right? That street was there until about 98. Now, if you can't acknowledge our pain as we walk past these symbols, why should we consider yours when we sing a song?
But hold on, people have acknowledged.
Not that I'm attacking you.
People have acknowledged that. People have acknowledged that, and name changes have taken place. There were really offensive city names that you can't say online anymore in South Africa. When even when I was a child after apartheid, and it took a long time for some of those things to change. And yes, some people held on to them for ridiculous reasons, and those things have been changed. And here we are, we're saying many things. Verwoerdburg is now Centurion. I think most people in Centurion don't even know it's called Verwoerdburg. It was called Verwoerdburg at one stage. Okay, there's a lot of names like this that has changed. Okay, and some for the good, some for the better. All the people saying this is one song from your liberation. All the other songs is okay. Can you please just calm it down as a politician? But I agree, general population can sing it. Let you and I calm down a little bit. I want to get focus comments on here. Thank you.
Just one last thing before it's almost time for me to go. Just one thing. Yeah, just consider this for a second. Why can't we work for the day when Kill the Boer is no longer needed? Why can't White South Africa meet us in the middle and say, you know what? Let's do this. Here's my hand. I think this was Gaita who said our brothers and sisters, which is what we want you to be, all of you. But while we are extending hands, White South African generals building higher walls. We are not here to kill you. We don't want that. The song is an expression of faith. That's all it is.
Okay. Message received. Thank you. Foto, I'd like to have your comments and then Anota, because I think Fadil said enough now. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, what consoles me is that this song is sung by a small group in one political party. And I remember in the 80s, there was no this thing was not there in the townships and the villages. It came with the former exiles of the MK who introduced it into the country. And as I say, the ANC put a stop to it, and then it died until it was revived by Malema. Okay, the Constitutional Court wasn't saying you can sing, go. It was not an instruction from the court that you can sing it. It just said the singing is not a hate speech. It is not. They were interpreting the law, not the morality. I am for the moral part of it. What is it? Is it okay to do it, when somebody feels bad about it? Okay. This has to do with the whole question of the whole issue of the national question. The national question meaning, how do we, as a people who were divided by apartheid, can come together in a united, democratic, shared prosperity, and a democratic and non-sexist South Africa? Is that national question? Unfortunately, our politics is racialized, and the radical woke element is exploiting the class differences and our previous history to not provide any kind of viable policy alternatives to build the economy, to fight poverty, and to reduce inequality. So it is an indication of impotence on the part of these politicians, these populist politicians. So I'm for building relationships with the United States, building a competitive economy, which we are not, and that ensure that there's safety for all, so that we can attract investment. I mean, the China has all the money to lend us to fix the trains, to fix the water supply, the network industries, which are the backbone of the economy. But we are busy arguing about small things because our politicians have run out of ideas how to rebuild this economy and make it competitive. That's why this peripheral issue is about killing the Boer. And we have a president who's not a very good leader, who lacks the oomph, who doesn't believe in the values of his liberation movement that is leading, the foundational values of nation building, reconciliation, putting people first. Right now we have them, they're arguing about BEE, which is only serving the interest of people who are connected. Nobody, the people in the rural areas, in the village, in the townships don't benefit anything from BEE because it is so narrow in scope. It is focused on distributing positions in the boardrooms, management positions, and racial representative at firm level. We don't have an economy-wide plan to fight black poverty, which is increasing. About 50 million black people are tax exempted because they don't earn enough of the tax threshold to pay personal income tax. Those are the questions that are on the table that we should debate as a black people and as a community. How do we take the economy forward? How do we repair that which is broken? We need that kind of conversation. But we are sidelined by these peripheral issues, and because the president has run out of ideas, his ruling party has run out of ideas. There's nothing that we are really on about as a country. There's no plan on the table. I'm looking at the medium-term strategic framework with these 300 KPIs. You don't have the kind of leadership to ensure that the government achieves those KPIs. The cabinet is weak, the public service is broken and corrupt and bloated, and the debt continues to rise. We are paying, we are servicing that debt at a level that is what is that, 400 billion, which is the highest item in the different functions. We are facing a fiscal cliff very soon because we have gone past the 60% debt to GDP ratio, which is advised for our size of the economy. We are now at 77%. We are sinking, but very, very slowly. And then not a lot of people are concerned about recovery, but we are just sidelined by peripheral issues and populism, which is not helpful at all. Thank you.
But Nota, let me get your perspective on this. So, do you agree that this is just a peripheral issue and people should probably be better off forgetting about it so we can focus on the economics and other things?
Yes, bread and butter issues, the economy. The economy.
I'd like to get Nota's view on that. Sorry.
Yeah, so I think our issue is that the people want justice. And the bread and butter issues and all of those other things, the economy, all of these things are becoming peripheries because, our society has become morally bankrupt because we have not gotten justice. And the level of unfairness that we are having to accept in our society is something that is corrupting our souls. You don't need to assess it in the opinion pages of your favorite newspaper or your favorite magazine. You can see it at the traffic lights. You could see it when you're in the filling station. We just don't have that camaraderie as a society anymore. We're not looking out for each other. Our society is tearing itself apart at the fibers, and that's because we don't have justice in our society, and everybody's complaining about it. If you're someone who's been in the township who has promised that, there's going to be new opportunities with this new democracy, you've seen the unfairness where you've seen cronyism, the kleptomania of the political elite, extricate them from poverty right in front of your eyes, only for them to return gloating with luxury cars branded with, party banners, coming to beg you for your vote in the squalor that you live in. That's the society that we live in, and the society is morally bankrupt enough for no one to, bat an eyelid at that, for them to feel no shame, to feel no guilt whatsoever, to skip over feces that are running in the streets because the sewage, pipes have burst, and walk into people's homes to be shooed away from others, chasing them down. Just so
But aren't you painting a picture though of too much despair? I mean, if you were to compare South Africa to other countries who had similar pasts and experiences, and we benchmark ourselves, yes, we are underperformant in some aspects, but we're also doing relatively okay in other aspects. I mean, it does sound a little bit doomy, doesn't it?
No, that's the problem. The problem is that it's unjust. There's people who are doing terrible, and then there's people who are doing just great. And that's the unfairness of it all. That's the problem with our situation, is that if we're all doing terribly, then we all have that solidarity of common suffering. But we don't have a common suffering. Most of us are just looking at the elite or the politically connected, and they're living a completely different life to us, completely isolated from our problems and our issues, and so far removed from us that they completely cannot relate to the lives that we're living. You know what I mean? You can have a state president who's never been on the roads as a normal civilian for over 30 years and doesn't know that the city of Johannesburg is completely dilapidated, and is shocked 31 years later, and has to do something about it quickly before he gets to host the guests. You know how it is when we're students and someone nice was coming to visit your place and you quickly swept your bedroom. That's exactly how our city is being run, like a dig, a student accommodation.
I hear you. Because I want to get your view on this, and it's just to pick up on last thing. And just it's like another 10 minutes, and I think then we'll call it. But there is this discourse that the elites cannot relate to the suffering of the ordinary person. I still think to myself, the elites in South Africa, I mean, I'm not even talking about the elites, you just call the middle class, because what we think is rich is often middle class in other countries who live in gated communities, okay, things of that nature. Surely they're not isolated from the problems, otherwise they wouldn't be living there. They wouldn't be buying private security. They wouldn't be doing these things. So, is what must one do with this, it's called inequality problem, and at the same time, is the narrative that the elite is the problem really the correct one?
Well, yeah, that's a loaded question, Hugo. I'm gonna keep it brief though. Yeah, because we are running out of time. Look, the middle class is powerless. To a large extent, the middle class is powerless for two reasons. One, they are outnumbered. They're heavily outnumbered, but by those who are a class lower. I don't know what the right term would be for a lower class than the middle class, but yeah, they're critically outnumbered by the class lower, and then they also critically outnumber the elite, quote unquote. So they're powerless. I'm saying this because the elites who are politicians, who are vying for votes, are going to target the majority that outnumbers the middle class. We see this every election cycle. This is why politicians on the campaign will promise free everything. I mean, in the recent election, you saw how the African National Congress and their president quickly signed the National Health Insurance Bill into law. They played it as an ace with the end game of thinking that it will gather them more votes. Peak moron Panyaza Lisufi even went around telling gogos that, you'll be, if you vote for ANC, you'll be able to go to Mediclinic Sandton. So they use it as an election play because they know that it's a hell of a lot of people that outnumbers the middle class. So I think the middle class is powerless to that respect because they are completely ignored by those who are vying for political power. On the equality, for me, it simply cannot be that since we all can't be equally rich, then we must all be equally poor for all of us to then as Nota says, get that camaraderie so we can understand everyone and each other's problems. I don't believe it's necessary for everyone to be equally poor, equally suffering for us to really take our well-being, including those of our neighbors, seriously. It cannot be for several reasons. One of them is that, look, at the end of the day, the issues we have as a society, unemployment is right up there near the top of the list, if not at the top of the list with crime. To solve unemployment, you need people to create businesses. To create a business that is going to meaningfully employ people, you will need capital. To get capital, you will require typically money. To get money, you most likely will require, if you don't have inheritance or anything, you may approach your nearest bank. To approach your nearest bank, which will give you money for you to have capital, you must have typically an education and some working experience. And to get that, you're going all the way back to now you must have capacity and capability, which circles back to you must have had some work experience for the together with your education for the bank to trust you enough to lend you money. Now, you can't fill that gap because unemployment is high. So you don't have enough people who are actually working. You don't have enough people out of those who are working who will then start a business. And out of those, you don't have enough who will then have the right experience, the right amount of education, and then the appetite to take the risk of starting a business to help solve the unemployment problem. So this is why we sit with the problem we have. And the government solution, they'll come out and say that as government, we are going to create jobs by doing XYZ. While the government's idea of creating jobs is to basically continue bloating the civil service. There was a picture going around today that shows roughly 8-9 people standing around a pothole wearing PPE. Why do you need 8-9 people to fill a pothole? But that's the idea of the government when they talk about job creation. Just dish out the jobs, which in turn increases the civil servant wage bill, which in turn devalues the rand and necessitates printing more money. So the solution doesn't exist unless the solution is to firstly address the unemployment. And that's going back to now addressing the problem we have with a not big enough middle class, that no one is willing to grow, because we haven't seen it grow since Mbeki stepped out of power, unfortunately. Life was very good in the Mbeki years. You saw Black people moving from rural township areas into the cities. You saw Black people, I say Black people because they outnumber every other ethnic or racial group, of course, but you saw Black people really change their lives and in turn turn the economy around and continue on the growth trajectory. Since Mbeki is gone, however, it's been socialist policies and appeasing that large number of the class lower than that of the middle. That's how we got where we are today. And certainly the current leadership does not have a plan, as Houta mentioned, to actually address it at all. There is no plan. And now we're here.
I'll go with the photo and then I'll give you the last word. So we have about 5 minutes left. Kitsu, I'm not sure if you'll get a last word. We'll see. Photo, just, on that, I mean, this conversation started with Kill the Boer, and I sort of, if I would understand, the guest came to the point that please, let's move on from this issue, okay, to the economics, to the focus. That's sort of what I get, and I think many people, surprised, I think even many white people would agree with that. The question on the economics. So there's this era of Mbeki, as Kuketsa now painted it. He painted a bit as a golden age. I don't think that's entirely true, but sure, a lot of Black people did move into the middle class. There were also major issues in the time, I recall quite well. And at the moment, there's a demand, as you can call it, from the lower class, if we could use that word in a non-derogatory way. And the government reacted with implementing certain policies, for what he said, appeasement. I mean, do you agree with that analysis? And what is the politicians able to resist this pressure coming from the bottom?
As I say, the politicians don't have ideas how to rebuild this economy. It is the same politicians who broke the back of this economy through corruption, state capture, network industries being destroyed. And there's this short-termism in the management of the economy, giving people temporary jobs, filling potholes, cutting grass. There is no investment, say, in agriculture, in manufacturing, in skills development. Do you know that our schools, our teachers don't have ICT skills in this day and age of robotics? So less than 1%, we did research in Pretoria, less than 1% of schools, Black schools have laptops, have Wi-Fi. Those kind of things that fuel the economy. You build the skills base, the human capital. There's no leadership there. There's no leadership to fight crime. As I say, if we took care of crime, construction, mafia, and others, the Chinese would lend us the money to fix Transnet, which is the backbone of our economy. You can't have social justice without growth. And growth depends on those inputs. You did economics, the four factors in GDP: government investment, private sector investment, consumption, and exports. We are not doing enough on those four aspects of GDP growth. those components of GDP growth. We need a revolution in political thinking in the cabinet to come up now with a plan. The economic reconstruction and recovery plan that was unveiled post-COVID doesn't exist anymore in government thinking. The NDP is 12 years now. We have had NDP. We have not implemented the first NDP. We should implement it every 5 years, but we have not even implemented it so far. So we need a leadership revolution. We need
that's the same with the IRP. It's the same with the IRP energy plan. It's I think it was written 10 years ago, and they're still using it, and it's outdated by the time it's written. So, things of that nature. Thanks. So, Note, I'd like to get your last word here. I mean, what do you think should be the way going forward? As I say, we started from the song, we reverted to economics, and I think all the speakers wanted to talk more about the economics at the end of the day. So, just anything you'd like to add for the last minute?
Yeah, so with the song, right, let's look at it like this. This is a fringe issue, and I need especially our white South Africans to understand it as a PSYOP fringe issue. Less than 1% of white South Africans are farmers. So if we're talking about the farmer violence, it doesn't directly affect the 99% of white South Africans. If we look at the crime issue, it's mostly an urban issue. There's many of us, Black and white South Africans, who've got many family members in the rural outskirts of South Africa, and we feel that they are safer out there than they are in the cities. We feel more comfortable with our grandmothers being in rural South Africa than we feel with our grandmothers being in the cities where we live and work, because it's less safe here. You don't send your grandmother to the city center, even if it's Sandton City. You don't send your grandmother there. You go there yourself. The rural areas are predominantly safer areas. We all know this. There's a general consensus amongst South Africans. So all that we're seeing about this kill the Boer rhetoric and everything else is just fear mongering, and we need to resist it and desist it. The other thing is that we need to actually look at the elites in this country. They're the only ones that are benefiting from us continuing the status quo. The revolution is a very simple thing. It just means that the lower classes, the working classes, the middle classes just needs to down tools. A week of not working, and those 5 families that control every single part of our economy, whether it be the banks, all of those people will need to shut down. They are reliant on people actually showing up for work. The reason why they need to be shut down, those elites, is because they control the politicians. If the plane that's going to Donald Trump has got Adrian Gore inside it, then Adrian Gore can't just pretend that all he does is look after Discovery. Obviously, he's very influential in how this country is run. If Johan Rupert is the one that is in charge of the whole entire delegation within the Oval Office, even speaking over the president, being the only person that's not interrupted, and buying, I don't know how many white people, Hugo, you're white, but I don't think that you are buying property for your grandkids.
My family doesn't own any property. We haven't owned for generations.
But I'm just saying. But the assumption there is from the Kill the Boer crowd, and we're speaking about people from a certain political party, and we should never attribute that or that rhetoric to all Black South Africans again, because that's not also the majority of Black South Africans as well. It's a particular political party that is singing that song for a particular campaign that they are running. Right? That is dangerous, that we can condemn if we want to, but we should not now make that the broader discourse of this country, and we should not allow the EFF to dictate relations between South Africans of all races.
I totally agree, and I think, just that was for me, with conversations such as this, I think are very helpful between people to clear misunderstandings, and I actually think, I agree with what much was said tonight. Maybe not all the solutions in the way they were proposed, because I have to think about some of them. But gentlemen, I'd like to thank you all very much for the conversation, and to the audience, thank you very much. Please subscribe, and please do send me also feedback in the comments, so how I can improve and how we can improve this show. Thank you very much. I appreciate the input, everyone.